Okay, I think I'm live. Hopefully you can hear me. If you can hear me, just write something in chat or something. I don't know. This time the stream is pretty far behind, which means that I'll have like 30 seconds of delay probably. So yeah, you're gonna have to deal with that. But today it's not very important to be extremely live because this is also suited to be watched afterwards. So I should probably get into what I'm going to do today, which of course is to make a conscript with you together, very live. I've literally only written down 30 or 40 words of rough outline, and I've done this, which you can see here on my screen, hopefully. And yeah, so that's in fact what we're going to do today. I thought I would do some more conlang content, and since it's the holiday season, and I hope you're all having a very great holiday, we could, and I have some time on my hands, I think I could do this live. Okay, I'm still getting a suggestion that the audio is not present, but I'm confused by that. So anyways, I think the audio is fine. The audio should probably be fine. Let me just do a very quick test. Yeah, the audio is fine. Okay. First, that's also the reason why I don't have that thing probably set up yet. I wanted to address a question of many viewers about what I'm going to do with this channel, because as you might have noticed, the last like 5 or 6 videos or something like that were essentially video essays in some sense or another. So I wanted to show you a very secret document. Well, it's not going to be secret after this anymore, but I'm going to show you a very interesting document that nobody except me has seen before, and that will demonstrate what sort of things I've planned. It's essentially my video idea scheduling thing, which I've started a couple of months back. So let me just switch to it. It's visible, very great. Don't be confused by the German menu text and stuff. Well, okay. What was I going to do? Oh, of course. I think you can read. Of course, first I'm going to do the last 2 SAO thingies. Cut the 6th and the 7th video and do a complete thing, which will probably be over half an hour long, so you can watch the entire defense in one video. Then the next thing I've planned is actually in German. In fact, there are like 3 German videos on this plan here, so that's weird. You're probably not going to be interested, but for all of the German people, like what I'm specifying here, Alea Aquarius is a German novel series that is currently also being written. It's one of the most popular fantasy novel series at the present time in Germany, and it's also probably available in English. You can look that up. And what I've been doing recently is being very involved in the fandom with this. Although the fandom is small and the community is small, it's very enjoyable. So what I'm going to do there is do some video essays on different topics. This is the first one, which I did because I was outraged about a section in book 5 book 5. This one is about genocide, as you can read here. Dr. Orion is a weird genocide guy who does genocides. That's what it says. And I actually finished the script last night for that. So, and finally, I have a theory video, but you're probably not going to care about this. What you're going to care about is this, which is today's video. And you're going to care about this probably, where I will finally be showcasing my conlang, which I also used in the other videos about Conscript font creation. So I want to do a showcase of that, so that Jan Misali from Conlang Critic can take it and rip it apart and stuff. But first, for that, I need to finish the language, and I was doing that like a couple months ago, and then I got sidetracked, so I need to come back to that, but this will definitely be happening in the next months. Okay, the next one is Rakuta Kishino Cavalry, or whatever the series is actually called. This is probably wrong. This is an anime, and I had some ideas about an essay content, because I was actually a big fan of this, and I plan to read the novels that are, it's also light novel based, so I plan to read the light novels. But anyways, this is pretty far in the future, despite being very, very high on the list. And finally, I've been doing some conversion of mini DV cassettes. You don't need to know what that is. It's essentially going to be a tutorial video, because what I'm describing here is converting the old DV cassettes and getting them onto your modern hardware and stuff. It's very complicated, and I want to help people that have difficulties nowadays, because all the tutorials and information is like from 2005, and all the videos are crap and potato quality, and from some weird French dude who doesn't know how to film properly, which is terrible. So I'm going to do that very nicely, and actually I can mark this as being finished, because of course I've written the script for this. So now it's on to actually footage. You saw that in my how I make videos thing, essentially my order. And yeah, of course, as you may see for this video, I've already taken footage for that, but it will take some time until I get around to editing that. Production. Why does it say production? It says that's a cut. I need to do the cut on this. Anyways, let's get back to the topic, and I'm actually going to just quickly switch something here. Let me just, yeah, that's it. Microsoft Whiteboard. Now you can't see my screen anymore. Okay. So what do I want to do today? Or rather, what does this mean? The previous sketch, this thing here. Oh, and by the way, I'm doing graphic tablet stuff, so you may see some weird mouse movement and stuff. Well, what we're going to do today is just do the number system for this script. And before I talk about anything, I will probably want to talk about the world that this is set in, because of course, as you may know, I'm like not primarily a conlanger. I also do conlang, but I'm primarily a world builder and a storyteller, and so all conlangs I ever created and all the conlangs I've planned are set in some story setting in some fictional universe, whatever. So this takes place in a world which doesn't technically have a name, and all the names are preliminary, so just bear with me. The names aren't the fantasy names, and I need to invent some names in some languages so that I can use those for real and all that sort of jazz. If you're doing anything remotely related to this, you probably know that problem. Anyways, the culture or the people that speak this language, which is written with this script that we're going to develop, and the language is not developed, that's why I'm doing the number system first. And this people is actually a people of cats. I'm going to probably talk more about that in the future, but yeah, for an introduction, it's essentially like the cats on Earth, except they are human level intelligent and they have the muscular precision of humans, so that they can do similar things to humans, very complicated machinery and all that sort of stuff. And in fact, in my world, there's like late industrialization. That's where the story is set, and also the cats, of course, can speak like humans, so their vocal apparatus is changed to reflect the apparatus of the human body, which means that I can simply create normal conlangs like I would use for humans, and I can just carry them over, and that makes things easier. Yeah, I could look at the physiology of cats and whatever, and I actually considered doing that, and I was doing some very interesting things with purring and meowing and stuff, but it's too complicated. And I think the main problem is, of course, that we have to extrapolate, because real world cats cannot differentiate that many sounds, which we need for a useful language. We need to differentiate quite a lot of sounds, even if it's only like the 20 to 30 to 40 sounds that most languages probably distinguish, if I remember correctly. So it's usually something like 20 to 30 consonants and either 3 or 5 or a bit more vowels. So yeah, that's just the ballpark, I think. Anyways, I'm going to give a very quick world building introduction without boring you too much. Essentially, the orange cats have been a people that has had their empire, the Orange Empire, last for, what is it? I think 200 years or 300 years, something like that. Don't quote me on this. It's all subject to change. And essentially, because they had their empire and their empire lasted so long, their language was a lingua franca for all the other cat people that they conquered, and this means that their legacy, their language was very important, of course, during the time of their empire, and even nowadays, where the story takes place, which is after the empire has fallen, the language has a lasting influence. And for example, I want to include a bunch of loan words into other languages that I'm going to develop later, and that's also the reason why I'm going to develop them later, because they will need to borrow words from this language. So, as I already said, yeah, they had their empire. The empire fell like 30 years before the story, something like that. And I think that's essentially all you need to know. And one of the crucial issues, or one of the crucial things to remember with the orange cats, is that they're pretty racist. So that they were very keen on keeping their orange bloodline, whatever you want to call it, clean, and they had a special system for determining whether someone was an actual orange cat or just descendant from some ancient orange cat ancestors somewhere in the sideline of the family, something like that, which essentially brings up, oh sorry, I zoomed there, which essentially brings up Nazi associations, whatever. These cats are Nazis in the sense that they are not killing other cats of other ethnicities. They didn't ever commit any genocide. In fact, a genocide was committed on them when their empire fell. Depending on how you define genocide. But I think that's all you need to know for this to work. Essentially, you don't need to know anything, but I still wanted to give that introduction. So yeah, I have written down here writing tools. Well, I'm using a graphing tablet, as you may see. And I'm using Microsoft Whiteboard because it's one of the only vector-based drawing programs that actually works with multi-monitor setups. I have 3 monitors here, including the graphing tablet monitor, and the graphing tablet has an integrated monitor. And that doesn't work with all of the GTK-based applications like Inkscape and Xonal++, which I would love to use, but it doesn't work. I could demonstrate it to you, but I won't. And GTK guys, if anybody of you is watching this video, please get this issue fixed. Please. I don't want to switch to one monitor every time I want to use Xonal or Xonal++ or Inkscape or whatever. Krita manages this, and GIMP manages this. This is all freeware. And of course Microsoft Whiteboard manages this, but this application is underpowered and sucks with large amounts of drawings. You can't actually move anything anymore because it will just crash. It will compute the new position of the vector object forever, and it will just crash. Doesn't work. But it's fine for our purposes, so that's what I'm going to use today. And of course I have the previous sketch here. So the idea was that this is commonly how number systems evolve. You start with a tallying system. Tallying is essentially Unary, which means that for every number, you write down literally the number of symbols of that number. So if we have the number 3, you would write down 3 symbols, and in our modern time we usually simply use single strokes for tallying, so we would do 3 strokes for 3. And if we have the number 14, we would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. I can't count. 13, 14. Yeah, that would have been funny if I had left that in and people would have corrected me in the comments. You can't count. These are 13. No, these are 14. This is 5, and this is 5, and this is 4. Okay, and that's already where you see the problem. Unary is very great, and in fact Unary is used in some compression algorithms, and Unary is essentially the simplest base that is still usable. If you don't consider like base 0, which is essentially impossible, or I don't know, I haven't researched that. I have only researched Unary. And the next step, of course, would be binary, where you can already use a 1 or a 0 for a single position. And the next one would be ternary, where you could do 2, 1, and 0, and so on. But we want to start with Unary because that's where everything starts. And the idea in my world is that the orange cats essentially invented writing. And there was another location in the world where writing was invented, but it doesn't matter for our purposes because it's far away. And so they started with tallying, and that's where I came up with this section of the chart. This section of the chart is essentially how they would group tallies up to 8. Here's 8, of course. You can read. And so what I imagined was, and I wanted to get away from the tallying system, or the Unary counting system that dice use. So if you have ever seen a die in your life, which you probably have, so dice, whatever, dice is the singular and die is the plural, something like that. So if you've ever seen a single dice in your life, or multiple die, you've seen that it's 1 and then 2 diagonally, and then we have 3, and then we have 4 and 5. It's all very, very symmetrical, of course. If we imagine after 6, we could do something like 7, and I'm just gonna scroll that over, and we could have 8, something like that. Then we could have 9, and that's essentially all the space we have. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So I wanted to get away from this. I didn't want to repeat this exact pattern of arranging points on a 2D grid, which essentially all tallying systems need to do, or arranging the symbols. So the symbol I went with is simply a diagonal stroke. And that's already the symbol for the number 1, the tallying method for the number 1. So that's what I have written here. So for 2, I went with 2 strokes over one another, which I think would be logical for someone to do if they wrote side to side, and I want to have the script right to left or left to right as its primary direction, so it's fine that we could write left to right. So you would probably stack the tallies of a single number on top of one another. So we would have these 2 strokes, and then for 3, of course, the logical continuation would be 1, 2, 3. But I thought maybe they wouldn't have that much space. Maybe they would offset one of the strokes to the side. So something like this, 3. And for 4 again, I considered, well, I could do all the things I considered were ugly. Like this was ugly, and it looks like braille, whatever, the writing for blind people, where they have these 6 dots, and some of them are present and others are not. So this would probably be a braille character. I don't know which one because I can't, but that would be 4. But I thought that would be ugly, so I scrapped it. And this is generally, if you're taking this as a tutorial, this is generally advice you can take. If you think something is ugly, just don't do it. You're the fucking creator. You can do whatever you want. And the thing I came up with, I don't exactly know why, was this. Now this, of course, violates the rule of having not 3 stacked on top of one another, but I think that would be fine. And also, if I removed this one and moved it somewhere else, the only logical place I could move it would be there, or else I would have a very wide, so if I remove that, I would have a very wide character like this, which wouldn't be ideal for still such a low number. So I would imagine something like this would be the only other logical option, which again would exactly be like a dice is constructed. And you can see that I can't draw. But yeah, so I went with this option, which you also can see here. And now to the 5. Now for 5, I went with the next logical place to put a stroke, which would be here. And maybe again, this is just some random stuff you can just do without justifying it. I would simply, oh, someone popped on the stream. Great. I would just put the character here, and that's just a little offset. Whatever. And yeah, that would be the 5, of course, you can see it here. And now I need to push the things over, or I need to move things over. Just 1 second. Welcome, new viewer, to the stream. You're the only person that watches this, but I'm not so sad about it because I'll just leave this up as a standalone tutorial. Saves me some time with scripting out a tutorial or whatever. Okay, we have the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 5. Of course, now, once we're getting into 6 territory, we should start to think about the base of our numbering system. And of course, with tallying initially, if they were just writing down strokes initially without any clear separation, there wouldn't be the issue of a base, because there wouldn't be a base or rather Unary is the base. Tallying is itself a kind of base. But once we get into this territory of ordering the tallying signs to indicate places and transition from tallying to actual number symbols to actual base writing, we would have to consider where to stop, where to put our base at. And I don't know why I went with 9. I just was curious because I've never really seen anyone use 9. There are popular bases like, of course, base 10, base 20, even base 60, and a bit lower than that, you would have base 2, and base 2, of course, base 6, which famously is actually one of the objectively best bases, as Jan Misali has famously defended on YouTube. And we have base 12, of course, which probably the Romans used to use. I'm not entirely sure about that, or the French also, something like that. And we have base 16, of course, which comes from computers, where base 16 is a very convenient way of grouping base 2 numbers. So if you have a base 2 number, like 0, 0, 0, 0, which simply would be 0, or whatever, 1, 0, 1, 0, which would be, let me just very quickly do the math in my head, which would be 10 in base 10. So we would write this like this. This is base 2, this is base 10. Then we could group these 4 together in a single base 16 digit. So we, of course, for the numbers 0 through 9, we have 0 in, this is base 16, which is called hexadecimal. I know my writing is very ugly, but we would have 0 through 9, and we would have A, B, C, D, and E, and F, of course. And that A, B, C, D, E, F would, of course, be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, which is the largest number in a single place in base 16 in hexadecimal. So in binary, again, this would be 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0. And finally, let me scroll down. I don't know why I'm giving a lesson on hexadecimal currently, but it's just to explain to you why hexadecimal is so widely used, because we computer scientists need it. So that's the equivalency. And that's essentially also the reason why we use hexadecimal in the first place, but other people have taken it into their conlangs probably, or maybe there were some natural languages that used base 16, because it's not that unreasonable, I would say. Okay, but I think we should continue. But what I've decided to do, of course, is to use Base-9, which I haven't seen on the internet before, or in general in conlang, whatever. So for 6, I didn't know what to do. I probably could have gone with this, but I thought this was too symmetrical, and I especially wanted to avoid a simple symmetry like this, which we could just put in. Maybe there were other places that we couldn't avoid symmetry, so I wanted to make things unsymmetric if I had the chance to. So I went with something that actually resembles dice. So dices. I'm not sure. So I actually went with this, which is of course the rotated version of a die face 6. And yeah, maybe later you will find out that this looks ugly, but as you will see later, I actually think that it's quite nice. So let's take this and move it over. I think I'm going to put a purple, very nice purple separator in between these so that you can just remember which is which. Okay, number 7. We only need 7 and 8. Now things are getting complicated because of course we have large groupings of tallying systems, and again, I don't know how to do this. I'm not trained in this. Whatever, I mean, you can't be trained in conlanging, obviously, but I'm not trained in linguistics, and I've never done research on how tallying systems evolve towards real number systems. So what we want to have today, I just went with the idea maybe they took the 5 again, like they dropped the 5 for creating the 6, but maybe they went with the idea of the 5 again and just put in 2 more tallies where it seemed obvious. That's my idea. So we don't have the actual 7 tallying system that we would have on a die face. That's a die face. But I wanted to keep things unsymmetrical, and I think that's also one of the charms of this weird thing, that it's weird and unsymmetrical but still very usable and still very obvious to see, because also essentially all of the tallying groupings have distinct looks, and that's also very important. Of course, you don't want things in your script to look too similar. You can make them look similar. You can make them like be rotated versions of one another, like of course the B, P, D and Q characters of the Latin script are all just rotated and flipped versions of each other, but it's fine because of the long stem and of course the very clear position of the stem. We can distinguish all of them very easily. It's of course confusing for children learning it, because children commonly do these rotations because they don't have the clear sense of directionality that we have. But still, it's a good thing to have these rotated versions of each other. You can do that, but still things need to look distinct. And I think for this simple tallying system, we can stick with things that look very distinct from each other. So this is the 7. Let's put it over here. And let's put in the final number, the 8. Now, of course, I could have filled up something, but I thought, okay, well, 8 is the largest number. We want to, of course, we have tallies. We can instantly recognize how large any of these characters is by just counting the tallies or just looking at the overall design, because the 1, there's literally 1 stroke, and the 7, there are so many strokes already. But of course, the 8 is the most extreme example. What I went with is actually already having this step in mind, which we will come to in just a second. But I had the idea of arranging them like a pyramid from below, so that the number of tallies would get larger the further we go up in the construction. So I would have 1 at the bottom and then 3. Then of course I only needed 4. And can see that's sort of like the 4, which of course 8 is 2 times 4. So we could consider that. With the 4, of course, we have a primitive version. We have 1, then 2. And with 8, we have 1, then 3, then 4. And I think I'm actually going to make a change now. Well, this actually only occurred to me just now. So I'm going to do it like this. Or if we consider a grid, I actually have a grid here, which is very nice. I think I need to quickly switch off the monitor, but we can give ourselves some better grid maybe for later. So let me just do that, and let me just talk over there. Nothing being in the background. What do we want? We want the hybrid grid. Right, I love the hybrid grid. It's one of the greatest grids. And maybe some background. No background color. could use black. I could do white on black drawing, of course. But it's already too late for that. Okay, you'll be back in just a second. And you're back. Okay. Now here we have nice little squares, so I can simply demonstrate it. I want these to all fit inside a neat grid, so I could consider it arranged like this. You can imagine it like this, essentially. And all of the others fit into such a grid as well. Of course, I didn't draw it very well here. I could have almost, like the 2 is almost in that sort of grid. But of course, I didn't base it on that. And of course, things will tend to shift, and this is just an idealized version. And probably if people draw it very quickly, they will soon develop habits of drawing it in weird angles and compressed in whatever ways to simply write it more quickly. And this is one of the most important evolutions that you will always have to consider if you're doing an evolution of a conscript, that once people start to draw things more quickly or want to draw things more quickly, they will figure out shortcuts very naturally. Shortcuts of existing symbols that are easier to draw but still easy to differentiate between from existing symbols. Maybe they're very similar, of course, to the actual symbol that they're simplifying, but that, of course, is not a problem. A famous example of that would be the Spanish n tilde, which, of course, is not a n with a tilde, but a separate character in Spanish, Latin, script, whatever. Anyways, I'm of course talking about this, which is pronounced N with the semi-vowel J with the palatal approximant, I think it is. So ña or something like that it's pronounced. Of course, I can't speak Spanish, so my pronunciation will be wildly off. But just this character, where did this come from? Originally, this sequence was written NN, I think. So, of course, the details are a bit more complicated than I'm presenting right now. And there's great research into this, but just for summarization, this sequence was written and people wanted to simplify it, so they wrote N and an N on top. You can imagine this N becoming, not in this way, but this N simply if you also imagine like a very quickly written N would probably more look something like this. You can imagine the N becoming a tilde over time. And something similar actually happened in German with the umlauts, because these characters were originally written with a small e on top. So it would be UE and AE. And you can still find books or titles from only like 80 years ago where this sort of UE is used. But we want to get back to the actual thing, which is of course now simplifying things. And I've already done that up here, obviously. But now we want to do it downwards. So very quickly, I'm going to delete all of these letters and I'm going to write them on top. So take those over and probably that was not intentional. Just put them into a different color because of course this is just our reference, our Indo-Arab numerals which we're using. Those are not Arabic numerals. The Arabs didn't invent those numerals. In fact, some Indic group, I think, invented these numerals, and they came to us through the Arabs, which use another modified version of this of this numeral system, where, for example, the 0 is not a circle but a simple dot, and I think 2 and 3 are something like this, and 3 is this. If I'm quite honest, I don't know. Just to clarify, these are Indo-Arab numerals. Okay, let's do the simplification. Of course, we forgot 0. That's what I'm just recognizing just now. And for 0, of course, you can get into the discussion whether your culture, the people that actually use this numbering system, actually need a symbol for 0, or if they even recognize the concept of 0 as such. Because of course, nowadays for us, it's a very natural thing to consider the 0 as a existing concept that is perfectly valid. But for a long time, it wasn't. If you recall Roman numerals, Romans didn't have a 0 because they didn't really grasp the 0 in a mathematical concept, the nothing in a mathematical concept as such. And it was from, I think, Indian astronomy that introduced a circle symbol for nothing, and it went over into our numerals. So that's why we have the 0 as a circle. And that's also why the symbol 0 and the letter O are completely unrelated. But for our culture, I'm thinking that we're going to go a basic route, and they are pretty advanced in mathematics. And in fact, one of the interesting things with their technology or their advancement as a civilization, as a species, is that their science is much ahead of what they are actually building in terms of technology and military and infrastructure and living standard and so on. So they have already long discovered the concept of 0 and already long accepted it into mathematics by the time they start to use the script. And initially, I simply considered that they would use a simple bar, but maybe they would squiggle the bar a bit, maybe. I don't know. It's just something I came up with and something I can decide because I'm the creator of the script. And there are actually no limits on what I can do. And this is always, you have to always consider that realism is great and realism is good. I'm going for realism. I'm going for a netlang, a language that should appear to be naturalistic, and a script that should appear to be naturalistic. But you don't need to. And even if you do, you can still take artistic freedom, of course. Because if you were strictly scientific, you could just use some generators, some simulation things. You strictly adhere to some world atlas of languages, what language features things have, what script features occur, and it's boring. And this is actually something that Edgar Grunwald from Artifactian repeats a lot. Yeah, you can use simulators also for other areas of world building, but it will be boring. It will be boring as fuck. There is no artistic things in there. So after ranting about not using simulators, I think we should go on to doing some actual evolution of this. So this is this step actually. And I thought about, well, people will write my script, the tallying system more quickly. So what simplifications are they going to do? Well, first of all, I think the 0 would become exaggerated. For the simple reason that, of course, symbols need to look distinct from each other, and that we need to be able to tell them apart, even if we are starting to write our script more quickly. So I think the 0 would evolve from a squiggly line with many squiggles to a big wobbly line, like this, or like whatever I drew just there. Let me just figure out something like that. Okay. Or what I actually wrote was something like an M character, and it's really hard to keep that actually in shape because, of course, I'm so used to just writing an M because it's part of the script I can write best, or probably the only script I can write completely. But anyways, I think the 0 would evolve into something like this, and the 1, I think, wouldn't evolve into anything. It would just stay this weird character, and in fact, I think we are going to give ourselves some more space. here. Just a second, bear with me. I'm actually glad that someone jumped on the stream. Hello, fellow Comlanger, fellow Conscriptor, whatever. I hope you're enjoying this. And of course, I'm recording this so that people can watch it afterwards. 0 and 1. Okay. The 2. You can of course already see what I've previously thought up, and the thing I thought up for the 2 would be that if you think about, of course you have to imagine now my hand writing on the graphic tablet, whatever. I'm going to use cyan for this, that if people, I already did it, if people are going to write these 2 tally lines, at some point they wouldn't even lift up their pen anymore. At some point they would start to like maybe put up their pen a little bit. You can see that from the pressure I'm applying to my pen. Of course, simulating this in slow motion. Let's just go over. I'm doing something like this. I really can't do that. And I'm a really terrible writer, and my handwriting is terrible if I don't put effort in. But if we imagine like a strong stroke, a soft stroke, a strong stroke, something like that. Yeah, I'm getting the hang of this. Of course, and they would do that for very quickly writing these 2 tallies. Maybe I can get that naturally. Like right now I'm still trying to write 2 tallies, but I'm already recognizing how my pen simply wants to stay on the drawing surface. And this is actually a very good practice. If you're developing a conscript in this way and trying to look what happens when it appears to be written faster, you should actually write it faster. And this is where your drawing medium comes in. And this is something I haven't talked about today because drawing medium is very complicated. And frankly, I don't want to bother with it. So what I thought up is simply if them having brushes with some fur brushes essentially that are used to write on stone and wood and maybe some proto paper and later maybe some real paper, maybe initially some leaves or something, but a brush will generally allow you to do a lot of different types of strokes. The stroke thickness will vary a lot, but I'm not going to deal with that yet. And maybe at this stage, when they're developing the Unary system, they're still literally carving symbols into rocks, whatever. Where of course these shapes would be very easy. Simply carving a straight line into a rock is very simple. And of course, yeah, if you have some very specific kind of script, kind of writing medium that your script is based on, you should really consider picking up the writing medium itself and writing it down. And this has been suggested like by 1,000 people on 1,000 subreddits and in 1,000 YouTube videos. I can't tell you anything new. I can just tell you show you how I actually go through this process. And so the 2 would at the first step transform into something like this. Now the 3. Now for the 3, I'm not going to demonstrate this in detail, but I think we would have something like similar to the 2. The strokes would connect, and if you look at this shape, you can see there's essentially a continuous line here, and then a smaller line off to the side. So people would draw a long line and then a short line. And you're already starting to recognize that this looks very similar to the 2. So what people would do at this point is make it very exaggerated. So a very long line and then a very small stroke. Of course, this is over exaggerated. That's essentially what I was also doing here. And so we could see something like this starting to evolve. And this already, this is still a stage where, I'm going to draw that again. This is still a stage where this part would be very large. So this is only the first step in evolution, of course. We will have to evolve that further. And for the 4, I think people wouldn't bother with the strokes anymore, because like 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3, that's still only a maximum of 3 strokes. People would still bother to, even in simplification, draw the actual tallies. But once we get to 4, we need to consider that. And we need to write all of these numbers with approximately the same speed, because they're all approximately as likely to occur. It's sort of an economics thing. And you can apply that to script in general, because if you consider something like the Chinese script, which is used in Mandarin and most other Chinese languages, and in Japanese, and in fact even in Korean, then you can see, of course, that the common symbols have been simplified over time, and even through lawmaking, like the kanji simplification of Japan, and the simplified Chinese script. But the old very complex scripts are like very complex symbols that take like 20, 30, 40 strokes to draw. They're not used that often, and they have very specific meanings that are rarely ever needed in everyday life. They probably never appear in the newspaper. They would rarely appear in some sort of poetry or literature. And that's what you have to keep in mind. But of course, in this case, we're talking about a very common symbol. So here we're talking about the number symbols, and every one of them needs to take approximately the same effort to draw. So for the 4, I thought people would recognize this sort of inverted L shape you can see here. So I think people wouldn't even bother with the actual lines here anymore. You could do something like this. That's actually interesting. Take this, then consider those guys all connected, those lines all connected. I'm not a fan of it, especially because, of course, it's just an inverted 3. But of course that's fine, because the 6 is an inverted 9 in our numerals. And what else? The 2 and the 5 are essentially rotated versions of each other, and the 1 and the 7 are in many handwritings, like my old handwriting, very similar. So I used to actually write the 1 with this initial stroke, but I stopped doing that because for my classes I need to write a lot of 1s, because we're computer scientists and I need to write very quick 1s like this. So, but in my old handwriting, a 1 and a 7 would, especially if I'm writing the 7 very, very quickly, they would look extremely similar. And if you imagine leaving out the stroke, they would become indistinguishable. So I wouldn't want something like that to happen. But on the other hand, yeah, I could see this. I could actually see this happening. But then we need to maybe evolve the 3 in a way how natural handwriting would transform a downstroke, like we have here with the downstroke, other than the upstroke we have here. That's another thing we have to consider. These symbols aren't simply existing in a vacuum and being rotated around. They actually have a different origin, and they are written in a different way, and that would lead them to different kinds of simplifications over time. So I think I'm actually going to deviate from my original plan of the inverted L shape and going to go with this. And the script is already looking very angular, and I don't know the script aesthetic I'm going with here. I think I'm going to make it pretty round in the end, but for now this is very nice. I really like how these symbols all feel connected, and that's an important thing. You need to make your symbols very connected. Now for the 5, I actually dislike my old ideas. They're all terrible. These of course. And so again, we could go with the actual literal following just the outline. That's what I wanted to do for the 4. When I scripted up this, I didn't go for that. I did go for a first stroke, second stroke, then sort of connects to whatever. That's ugly. So we would have something like, if we just connect all of the strokes, it would essentially look like this. And that's just ugly. We can't put that in. That is just ugly. But maybe this gives me some new ideas. Like right now, I'm literally live conscripting. All of the other things I sort of had planned, but at this point, I'm reconsidering my old options. And don't be afraid to kill your darlings. Don't be afraid to throw away the things that you have already created. So that's a complicated matter. Maybe some, yeah, that would be cool. Like first stroke, second stroke, third stroke, first stroke, whatever. First stroke, second stroke, third stroke, going into the other two strokes, because at this point the writer is already fed up with the entire thing and doesn't like it anymore. I'm considering whether to split up the stroke. Whether to connect these two, actually. Whether to do a connection like this and then do an inverted 3, like, or like a 4, essentially. But that would look like two separate characters. And right now I'm having a lot of connected characters, and I'm thinking at least for the number characters, we should keep them connected. Already streaming for an hour, what the fuck? Okay. Well, let me just hydrate for a second. I really need to think about this. Okay. Well. Yes, I'm liking this idea. I'm really liking this idea, but it's too round for this stage, I believe. This stage should actually be pretty angular. Maybe something like this. I'm just whispering the feel of the flow of writing this. You can probably infer that. There's something that helps me with. Somehow also helps me with like learning or trying to write hiragana and katakana, which are the Japanese syllable characters. Although I'm terrible at that and I can't like to. Oh, Luke Roberts, I'm sorry for not reading that. I have the chat open, clear in front of me. I could see 2 becoming an inverted N shape, or is that? I think that's the Cyrillic H, if I recognize that character correctly. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at Cyrillic. Please correct me if that's wrong, but yeah, that makes sense. But again, I'm on the one hand, of course, that makes sense as a natural development. On the other hand, I don't want to invoke. I'm really afraid of invoking the style of any pre-existing script, at least of the scripts that I know of, or at least of the common scripts like Latin script and Arabic script and all of the Chinese derived scripts. No, I in Cyrillic. I'm sorry. So that's related to some Greek character I can't remember right now. Okay, I in Cyrillic. I'm sorry. I had that wrong. So okay, yeah, that makes sense, but I'm sorry to sort of stop this train of thought. I'm just going to very quickly write this down. Whatever that character is called. I'm just going to write that down. I'm going to continue here with the 5, which of course this is ugly. We won't use this. But I think for now, just to move on, I'm going to stick with, what did I say? This, I think. Okay, which presents a similarity between 4 and 5, which makes sense. Again, in Arabic, we have one number character that is this and one that is this, which is completely fine. They're distinguishable, and that's great. So we have a 4 with essentially a straight bar, and a 5 with these two up and down strokes, and a curved downwards bar. Okay, and for the 6, I think there's not much discussion around that. I really want them to transition towards following the shape of this Unary grouping, this tally grouping, and just write 2 strokes. And that's also fine. Like, all of the others are combined. Okay? Combined characters already, as of now, a single stroke. But for the 6, I think with 2 strokes, especially because we don't have any straight strokes in the script yet, we can probably afford that. I can probably afford that. So I can do 2 straight strokes, which of course are also very quickly. I'm always considering how fast can I write them, and I'm a pretty fast writer. I'm an ugly writer, of course, but I'm a pretty fast writer, and that all works. So that didn't work. That also didn't work. So I think we can keep that 6. Okay, and 7. Now 7, of course, again gets a bit more complicated because there's no obvious shape that we can outline, like with 6 or with 4. And what I went with, what did I go with? Oh, I went with this essentially. Along this, then down, this continuous stroke, then up to this one, then down again, and back to this. And I saw it evolve into this shape. I think I can't currently remember how I thought that up exactly. Oh no, I'm sorry. It was these 2, then down, then up, and then these 2. Aha. Okay, so yeah, I think that one is actually pretty crappy. I'm going to go with this option. So I'm going to have a large vertical stroke, then back along the same, so backing off in the inverse direction. I don't have that yet. This, then going up, and then going. I need to go over. Oh, I need to go over. So not exactly backing up. Another one of these angled strokes, and then coming down to the same level. I think even. Yeah, I think that's actually also a very comfortable stroke to write. I quite like that. Oh, I'm right now writing it a bit too large, I think. Yeah, but I think actually it fits in very nicely. We have a lot of these flat angles that come in at an angle, at a weird angle, not exactly straight, and going out at a weird angle. We have it here, we have it here, we have it here. And this is the sorts of things that you need to consider to really bind your script together, so to speak. That the characters look distinct but related. That's a good term. I think Artifactian said that in his Making a Conscript video or something like that. Again, of course, if you really want the hard and true facts, you should really go watch some other conlanging and world building YouTubers. I'm just presenting how I do things and doing this live and presenting some knowledge I may have to share along the way. Let's finish off with the 8. And in this case, I thought the people are not going to bother with writing all of these 8, like something like that. I made some weird sounds there, but I think you get the point. So yeah. I think they're just going to draw out the shape, of course. The shape is a triangle. And now at this point, of course, we have our first actual closed shape. All of the other ones are open, and now we're just outlining the things and not even really drawing this middle one here. So consider this would probably be the first stroke, because this is pretty obvious. I think this would rise pretty quickly. Maybe people would start writing like this and then later transitioning to actually like this. I really like this. It doesn't fit in with the script and it's way too many single strokes, but I really like this. Just suddenly occurred to me. That's fancy. I need to keep that. I need to put this in probably one of the other scripts. Yeah. Okay, anyways, where am I going to write this down? Just a second. I'm going to get a real pen and write that down onto my whiteboard, which I did the initial sketches on. Okay, thanks for your patience. Just very quickly. Okay, let's get back to this. First stroke, definitely. Now, of course, we have these. These are kind of in a single stroke. But well, I don't know, because it's such an angular thing. It's rather like this. That's how it initially looks to me. Or even maybe something like that. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. That's the course outline, but people are not going to bother with this because it doesn't help them distinguish it from anything else. That's also a consideration that I would have at this point. So this stroke. We're going to start with this stroke actually and going down. Just or start on the other side. Like I'm really trying to avoid upstrokes, although technically there's nothing that could stop me from putting them in, especially if I'm considering that I'm writing with brush here. So I have this general outline. I have this, and I have this outline. So that's a difficult choice. Essentially only have this middle, but I don't want to keep a character like that. Could keep a character that, well, again, the upstroke is really bothering me, to put it that way. Probably already thinking about this for like 5 minutes now, which is too much for this tutorial because I'm already at 1 hour and 12 minutes. Oh my god. Okay, I think we're really only going to get as far as I planned today. I thought like I would be done after half an hour, but we're not going to. This. Well, fuck it. I'm just going to go with a triangle that is in fact curved like this. So we'll have to figure out. Yeah, I'm going to go with this. Nope. But it's really hard. Well, it doesn't matter. In the next step, it will become a straight downward facing triangle anyway. So let me just something like that. Doesn't exactly matter. It's a bit large, but I could make it smaller. Yeah. Make it smaller, make it fit in with the other ones. Very nice. Going to quickly push that down. Push the entire thing down. Now, this is your last chance to look at my concept for the next step, which is up here. But I pretty much have that remembered, or rather I changed a bunch of the characters, so it doesn't matter anymore. So the 0 is going to change probably, going to stay the same. And the 1 is also probably going to stay the same, although I would think that it would straighten out so that it doesn't take up so much horizontal space. The 2, now I'm going to go with that idea actually. I'm going to go with 2 becoming a character like this, like the Cyrillic I. Okay, and 3. Now this is one of the things I initially thought of. People would probably write like this and then go up, and then in this upstroke, I think it would also with a brush be very natural to write that this way. Just looking over my shoulder because I in fact have a brush here. Maybe you can hear that. But well, I do have ink here, but it would be way too much effort to just to take out the ink right now, and it's not a good brush. But if I think about that, yeah, it would probably be a bit easier. Well, you always have that twisting of the brush tip, which happens each time you change direction inside a single stroke, and that's also why most in Han characters, in Chinese characters, the direction changes are almost only 90 degrees, and then of course a lot of single strokes. So I think that changing that to a curve is a natural development for something like this. And I have a second person on stream. Welcome. I'm actually I'm almost done, but that's not a problem because maybe I'll get stuck on some of these numbers. And I have some more theoretical things to tell you after this. Okay, let's look at the 4. I think, of course, with the 4, the inverse thing would happen. So this stroke would stay the same, but then this would converge into a curve. And I think I'm just going to, because I really like the look of this, I'm just going to do the same thing with the 5, which of course is initially a very similar character, and it will still have this stronger curve. I'm going to change that slightly. I'm going to have a stronger curve like this. These are all getting very big, so I'm just quickly going to can't do that. Just slightly resize them so that they fit in with all of the other guys. Like this. Okay. And just move these down. That's always the great things about it. So if you're considering to buy a graphic tablet, do it. Absolutely do it. It's wonderful. I love it. Anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say for the 5. Let's continue on with the 6. The 6 would probably stay the same. I don't currently see a possibility how 2 simple strokes would change anytime, actually. So 6 would probably be one of the most recognizable characters because it will probably never change or only change very, very slowly. 7. Okay, 7 is another complicated one. 7, I think we can get away with giving this an evolution towards a rounded shape. Again, it's the same thing over and over again. The same evolution should happen to pretty much all of the characters. So yeah, you will have these similar looking changes, which of course is a good thing because then all of your characters will stay looking similar and connected. And in my case, of course, it's this combination of downwards angled strokes, so strokes that are started from that come from above and go to above. Those are all very angular, and all of the other angles that start from below and go to below, those are all rounded now. So I'm actually, actually, this is intentional, this rounded thing here, so that, again, I'm setting myself apart from the Cyrillic I, which is pretty much quote-unquote inverted N, although it doesn't share any commonalities with N at all. I'm intentionally using this to set it apart, and maybe 2 will actually become something like this, which would again be somewhat like a U character. I just can't avoid Latin and Cyrillic and Greek and stuff, because essentially this is the Phoenician family of scripts, so to speak. And another person jumped on the stream. Welcome. I'm trying to evolve this section into this section. So again, we had a stroke up, and now this is, I'm again trying this with my brush on a dry piece of paper, or I could even try it. That was my brush. I could even try it on any surface at all, because it's not wet. Could have this stroke be curved, then this upward stroke I think wouldn't be an issue, because it's such a natural movement of my fingers. And then we would have another curve. So we would essentially have a large curve and a small curve. Let me just put that down. We have a large curve and a small curve. I actually like the looks of this. Again, I would like it to keep more of this weird, like, what is this, 15 degree or 20 degree angle that we had going on. Essentially, it was having a something like this, and then we would have to do that. So this is one of the characteristics that I'm seeing pop up in the script a lot. That I have sorry for that pause. They have this angle, and these angles are all that, and I'm just, the thing I just happened when I paused was that I recognized that this is wrong. This angle should stay, and this angle should change into a rounded shape. So we would have something like this. Rounded, this is rounded, this, okay, now 2 and 3 are getting into each other's ballpark again, but I think it will be fine if we really pay attention that the curve of the 2 is really large, and the curve of the 3 is just this tiny hump, so to speak. Okay, so the 7 would look something like this. Would essentially be, okay, I think I'm going to just keep this very flat angle, this essentially reversal, because if I open that angle up like I just did, I'm going to switch to turquoise because this is my concept color. I'm trying to write this multiple times so that I see how it feels. Well, yeah, I really need to pay attention, but I need to really do a flat curve here, and this is really contrary to what we had initially up here. So no, I'm going to go with the very flat thing. Yeah, that's good. That's probably okay. Can just correct that a little bit. Of course, I could go in and make a perfect vector font or whatever, but this is just scripting. And for the 8, now of course such a significant signifying symbol as a triangle, inverted triangle, I think it wouldn't round off. I think it would simply straighten up, because this still has these 2 different angles. Or if we enlarge that, it is essentially, let me just make some space. If we enlarge that, we would have something like a straight line, a very shallow, and a very wide angle. So we would have something So this would be these angles I'm just trying to figure out. We have, this is not an it's particularly not an isosceles triangle, and not a triangle with two equal sides, which I don't remember the mathematical name of, but this would be this would be above 60 degrees, and this would be below 60 degrees. So degrees. So and this would also be below 60 degrees, probably. Or this would be about 60, maybe. Could that? Yeah, that could be the case. So this is such a weird and slanted triangle. I don't think it would hold up. It is much simpler to simply put in a rather straight triangle, even if you're not really trying. Your triangle will probably, in careful handwriting, be easier if it's straight. So first, I'm also trying to simulate very fast writing, but my writing is even too fast for this, I think. So yeah, let's put in, that's wrong. Let's put in a pretty straight triangle. I can't even. A pretty straight triangle. Here we have it, guys. A pretty straight triangle. Okay, and let's just finish off this table. And yeah, now you can admire this. And actually, I didn't think it would happen, but we ended up, if you compare this to this, I didn't think it would happen, but scaline, a scaline triangle. Thanks, bro. Doesn't matter anyway. It's just math nerdiness and stuff. If you consider this was my original plan, I thought I would simply go through how I ended up there, but I actually did quite some changes, and that's also something you have to consider, of course, that that the more you iterate over this, the better your results will probably be. And now I have some very consistent results. I have some very similar looking symbols, except for 6 and 8, but I think that's fine, because in our script we also have a symbol like, I would consider the 4 be pretty much being an outlier. Of course we don't recognize it because we use it all the time, but I would consider the 4 to be an unusual number character in our system. And yeah, so having 1 or 2 outliers is probably not an issue. So before we go, let me just delete those 2 lines. I want to label this, and I'm going to label that in red. This first line we had here is tally grouping, I would call it. This second line is well, how do we describe that in 1 word or in 2 words? It's continuous tally and tally to symbol, I would call it. Okay, and the final one is what I would call brush rounding. So certain strokes become rounded because of how brushes work. Okay, let me just move these closer. And so that's essentially all I wanted to achieve today. I don't actually think that much would happen to these number characters anymore. This is a very sharp evolution. We did a lot of evolution steps in at once, so to speak. But that also allows us, of course, to save time. And again, this is only the number system. I don't need to spend exorbitant amount of time on this, so I can keep it like this. Okay, now of course I could make that table more nice, and I probably will have by the time that we are doing the second part of this, but that's fine for now. And now I want to talk about something that I have been thinking about after reading up some more on bases in preparation quote unquote, is that and it's actually in the title, that I wanted to transition this to balanced Base-9, or a balanced number system. Now, of course, the big question is, what is a balanced number system? Great, you asked, chat. Nobody asked in chat, of course, because they all knew that I would explain it, of course. This is pretty much the only thing that I think nobody's talked about in a Conscript or a number system video. And of course, everybody, if you're trying to make a number system, just go watch the Making a Number System featuring Conlang Critic by Artifactian by Edgar Grunewald. I'm probably going to put that link in the description. I can't do that right now, or I can do that right now, but I would need to look up the YouTube link. You don't care. Anyways, watch it later. But essentially, a balanced number system is a system where and you can only do that with odd bases. Yeah, you can only do that with odd bases. So it's not possible with base 10. You essentially you split the in our case we have 0 through 9. If you again imagine our base system, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm sorry, 0 through 8. And this is these are the values. And if you have again, let's use our normal numbers because I'm familiar with them, but let's work in base 9. If you have a number like, I don't know, 1, 7, this place would have a single value. Oh, Rafael Fernandez, thank you very much. Artifactian mentioned balanced ternary in this video. Very great. So essentially what I'm going to do today is and taking the concept of balanced ternary but putting it to base 9. And I know about balanced ternary because it's very important in mathematics if you're working in finite fields. And I didn't want to go into that because it gets complicated very quickly. And it's a very, of course, we're talking about numbers. It's a very mathy topic. The follow-up, yeah, that's possible. Did I watch the follow-up? Yeah, I of course, I watched every single Artifactian video, and everybody should check it out. But I watched that months ago, maybe even years ago, so I can't remember every single detail, and he probably couldn't anyway. So let's get back to our topic. And this 7 has a value of 7, of course, because it's in the first place. But this has a value of 1 times 9, so 9. Of course, so the entire thing has a value in base 9, has a value of 16 in base 10. That's simply how positional notation works. So we have these. Let's take that away. We have these 9 symbols, and each and every one has an increasing value. So this has the lowest value, of course, which is 0, which is used for the for all of the places that are unfilled. So if we remember the number 17 in base 9, we could imagine a bunch of zeros before that, and these of course all have no value because they're all this one would be 0 times 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 9 to the power of 7. This would be 0 times 9 to the power of 6, and so on. This is all 0. It doesn't matter for our computation, so we just put them all away and just write 1, 7. Okay, but what we could, the best, oh, I'm sorry, Raphael again wrote that it was on Jan Misali's video on the best way to count, or a better way to count. It was probably the name. Anyways, that famous Seximo video, which I watched like 3 times because it's just so amazing. And that's very possible because of course he's the number base guy now. There's no one more nerdy about number bases on YouTube probably, except maybe some number file video or whatever. Anyways, this is the lowest number, and these have all increasing value. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remove the arrow. Bunch of Control Z's. Undo, undo, undo. But what we could do instead is reorder them, and or how do I explain that? Seximo OP, of course, Seximo's OP. Seximo's so great. We could reorder them, and now you have to forget for a moment what these actual values mean. This 5, 6, 7, and 8, and so on. So what we could do is put 0 in the middle, put 1, 2, 3, and 4 on one side, and put 8, 7, 6, and 5 on the other side. What you could imagine these value now to be, and now these are the symbols, so to speak. And these could be whatever. These could be our symbols above, and in fact later on they will be our symbols above. What we could do now is the actual values of these would be 0, plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, and plus 4. And on the other hand, of course, 0, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, and minus 4. And if you have any knowledge about math, you'll probably recognize right now that if we redefine these symbols like so, we can still write any number that we want. Now getting back to our, so essentially these will all subtract with their base value. They will subtract from the number we currently have instead of adding, because all of the other, or in normal base systems, in our base 10, we are simply adding. We're adding different values, different powers of 10, and so on, but we could also subtract. It would still work. Now let's reconsider our 17 here, or our 17, I'm sorry, which in base 9 again, which is 16 in base 10. This is with unbalanced 9. This is with normal base 9. If we can you see that my computer is getting into night mode, because of course I live in Germany and the sun is setting outside, although I can't see it because it's cloudy. Where is my, give me just a second. What the heck is my computer doing? Okay, I'm going to have to switch to this screen very quickly and do a night mode disable. Okay, here we go. We're back to non-night mode screen, or I don't even know if you could see that night mode, but I just wanted to make sure that there is no disturbance in the picture. So this again is unbalanced base 9. This is 0 through 8, and actually with the values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But now if we consider this again, and let's just use the symbols I've written down here, we would have to use we can only, for adding, we can only use 0 through 4. So if we wanted such a high number, which is so close, this is like really close, approximately to 0, which would be 18 in base 10. It's so close. In fact, it's less than half the way from the next base up, then the next one down, which would be 1 0, which would be 9 in base 10. This is like the distance here. The distance here is 7, but the distance down here is only 3. So what we can do is write this in this new balanced base 9. We can write this as 1 negative 3, so to speak. And that simply, 2 negative 3, of course. And that now means, okay, we take 18, we take 2 0, we take 18 for this base. This is just normal 2 times 9 to the power of 1 equals 18. I can't write 18. But now we don't add something like 7 times 9 to the power of 0, so simply 7. We subtract negative 3 times 9 to the power of 0, which will be, of course, negative 3. And I'm running out of space here. And that in turn, and I just used that wrong, I think. No, I didn't. That would result in, again, in 1 7 in balanced base 9, which would be 16 in our normal base 10. I hope you're with me here. This is literally an explanation I made up on the go. So let me just, okay, no, I think I'm going to do that. Okay, it's back. I was just confused. Negative 3, yeah. Of course, we have to remember this is base 10 and this is base 10. And I think I'm going to color in these in a different color, something like green. Sorry. So, yeah. I think you can see where this is going, and we can also do this subtraction thing with higher bases. Like if we had something like 1 negative 4, I don't know, a 0 or whatever in base 9, in this balanced base 9, we could also write that as 0 negative 4 would be positive 5, I think. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. 0 5 0 9. So I hope you can see where this is going. Of course, we could use anything here. We could use base. We could use number 3, which would make this a 2. And we can use some more negative numbers here, which would again make our entire number negative. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's why you also will not need any signs for this. I'm surprised you're still watching. This is really getting off track. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but you won't need any signs for this. See, if you use as the highest base, if we use something like just negative 1, then this would come out to negative 0 5 0. I hope so, at least. Makes sense to me. I'll take negative 1 and I'll subtract. Well, no, in this case it would again be negative, so I think in this case it would again be negative 1 4 0, because we're taking negative 1 0 0 and we're subtracting 4 0, which would be negative 1 4 0. Okay, I really hope this is not wrong. I'm not sure about this part with when you're actually dealing with going across 0, when you're actually going with negative, but I'm pretty sure this is how it should work. Anyways, what I was trying to do here, let me just color all of these in some different colors so that you can see. what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that I really like this idea, and I really want my system to become a balanced Base-9 system, which is very weird, and I think nobody's done that before, at least not with Base-9, of course. Well, I know about balanced ternary, and ternary, of course, if you imagine ternary, you just have 0, 1, and 2, base 3, and you can use -1, 0, and 1. And that's also if you think about the finite field f3. You can exactly do the same thing. The finite field f3 contains, I'm not going to write the actual operators that operate on the finite field f3, which is multiplication and addition, which you of course need for any field. This is very mathsy, I know, but this would be -1, 0, and 1, and technically this is also the same, or in a mathematical sense, skipping over a lot of details, this is also the same as taking the same order, 2, 0, 1. And of course it's more convenient to just write -1. It's more convenient for computation, and that's what we essentially do in ternary. But this is just some more advanced maths that doesn't have anything to do strictly with these bases, but the concepts are related, and I wanted to show you that. So we can just color this in another color. Let's take nice yellow. This is getting very colorful. Okay. So let's wrap this up, guys. Okay, first, why am I doing this sort of balanced bullshit? Because I can, and because I think it will be fun. Okay, and so I want to quickly write that down. This will be -1, -2, -3, and -4, and of course this image up here, this I can already delete that. And while I'm doing these final corrections, what have we done today? Today we have taken this tally system down there and thought about how the scribes would order the tallies into formations that look like this, like this, like this, and whatever. And then we looked at how these tally groupings would evolve into continuous symbols that have, in our case, 2 strokes at maximum. This is the first step down here. And then we've thought about how our writing medium, in our case, a brush, and how the increasing speed of writing these characters and the need to still keep them distinct would transform them into this last step. And of course I'm presenting this very linearly and very nicely, but I could now go back and decide, oh, I don't like the 7 arrangement, and then I need to change all the other steps. And it's all a very continuous process. So you need to consider that. It's just, this was kind of prepared. I already had the tallies figured out. So there wasn't that much to do, but still I spent 1.5 hours on it. So yeah, and then down here I explained how balanced bases work and why I wanted to transform this basic, quote unquote, Base-9, which still is a very weird system, into a balanced Base-9. And that's what I noted down noted up here, which is wrong color. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is balanced. And this is unbalanced. Okay, we can take that off. Here we are, guys. Let's just zoom out and look at everything we've done today. I'll leave you with this final picture. That's essentially all I've planned for today. Now for further videos, of course, I don't know when I will continue this series. I'll probably only have time to continue this series once I have the actual language figured out. And that might take some time, but because I first need to finish another language, and yeah, you know how things go. But well, if you have followed my channel for any time, you've recognized that I'm unfocused, or technically I'm doing a lot of different content. So the next videos will probably be more like these video essay type things that I've been doing that I've enjoyed. And if things go well, the next video essay after the Sorted Online series will be one where you are going to see my face, which will be fun. I don't know. I can't do camera stuff. Anyways, so long story short, I don't know when this will continue, but I will definitely consider doing it again. It was a lot of fun for me. And of course, it forces me to actually do this conlang and not sit around on it, whatever. Okay, that's all I have for today. And cue the outro music. And which I can't, because I can't use OBS and stuff. Anyways, until next time, goodbye.